Hello, everyone. This is Dr. B from Steps to the Future, coming to you with another episode of College and Career Conversations with Dr. B. I am thrilled with my guest this evening. As a school counselor or as a high school teacher, we used to always wonder, what happens to students that went to our school after they graduated? So one of the things, as a school counselor that we used to have to do at the end of the year, we always had to do a report for the administration where we would tell them what percentage of students were going on to a 4-year school, what percentage of students were going on to 2-year school, military, employment, so on and so forth. So we did a great job of that. But you know what we didn't do a great job of? What happened to those students 18 months down the line, 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line? We didn't have the mechanisms in place. Well, I shouldn't say we didn't have the mechanism in place. There was a mechanism, but our school department didn't want to pay for it, that we could track students to find out, what happened. Because so many students would leave our school and we would, in our heads, we think, okay, they're off to college. That's what they're going to do. And then we'd find out, through word of mouth from other students, oh, this one didn't stay, or this one transferred, or something else happened. So I love it when I have the opportunity to have a conversation with someone that did attend the same high school where I worked for a number of years as a social studies teacher and then as a high school counselor. So for those of you that are here, please make sure you put your comments in, join the chat. Join the chat, put your comments out there. Let me know who's there. Share this out. For those of you who are going to watch this on the replay, please make sure you share this out with people also. And put your comments in there because I do still go back and read the comments as they come in. So again, as you come in on the chat, let us know who you are and where you're from. And please join the conversation. We'll be back in a few seconds. Okay, so we are back, and I'm going to bring our guest on the screen and then read his bio, and then we'll get the conversation going. So everyone, welcome to the conversation. Whoops. Here we go. Welcome to the conversation, Brian Monteiro. Brian, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure when you reached out. I never thought twice about doing this. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So folks, let me just give you a quick bio of Brian, and then we'll jump right into this conversation. So Brian was previously the campaign manager for the New England region for Compassion and Choices. Brian brings a wealth of experiences from the corporate community, managing a political action committee, as an organizer on multiple local and federal campaigns, in state government, and as a district staffer for a U.S. congressman. Brian earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in political science from the University of Rhode Island in 2006. So go Rhody Rams. So Brian, again, welcome, and so thrilled that you're here. So tell me so when you graduated from East Providence High School, why did you make the choice to go into political science?
Well, actually, that's an interesting story. When I was looking to initially go to college, I was applying to a lot of HBCUs. So I had applied to Lincoln University, Bethune-Cookman out in Daytona Beach. I had applied to the University of Rhode Island and Rhode Island College. Thankfully, I was accepted to all of them, which was, for me, I was never a great test taker. So, my SATs weren't too high. So how I ended up at URI is I was looking at the cost of, my education, and my mother let me know. She said, hey, you can go to an in-state school for a fraction of the price. I'm not telling you can't go to an out-of-state school. I'm just, giving you the options and letting you know financially what those repercussions would be. So I chose to attend URI and attended the talent development program, which is just an absolutely fantastic program. It gave me the structure, the guidance, and everything I needed to succeed in my career. From the moment I stepped on campus to literally the minute I left, I used to meet with my advisor, Sharon Forleo.
Yes.
who was just a huge part of my education. That was just such a transformative period of my life. The 4 years that I spent on that campus, had a opportunity to meet tons of people, friends, and made experiences and met the folks that guided me towards my career now. So how I ended up in political science is I initially was an African American studies major. I wanted to be an African American studies professor. The first Black teacher I ever had was Richard Martin at URI. I mean, at East Providence High School my senior year. He taught us Black history, and that was the first Black teacher that I ever had in almost my 18 years of life to that time. It was just such a good class. He was such a good educator. He knew how to control the classroom, and it really just opened up a new path for me. And when I got to URI, I started studying African American history mixed in with political science. And ultimately, at the time, I wanted to be a lawyer. So I chose to go study political science, but I almost minored in African American history. I was just a bit lazy my senior year, and I didn't want to have to take another history class my second semester. But political science was a fantastic major. I think people have it a bit confused, thinking that political science is the function of politics, and that's not really it. It's really the function of government, and politics is a function of that. So it really just gave me a good, well-rounded just vision of the world, and how it became to be, and how different governments in different countries will run the way that they will run. If I could do it again, I still don't think I'd choose another major.
Okay, that's interesting. It's so funny because when you talked about talent development, and I am a huge fan of talent development because it is one of those programs that works miracles, and it just puts resources in people's places. For those who are listening in that don't know what the talent development is, it's a bridge program, what we call a bridge program in the college admission world, that the University of Rhode Island hosts, where they invite students down prior to the beginning of their freshman year, and they spend the summer on campus. It's is it 6 weeks on campus? I think it's 6 weeks on campus.
I think it was yeah. It's been about I'm gonna date myself. It's been about 20 years now, but I think it was about 6 to 8 weeks on campus.
Yes.
But it was, I mean, just to assimilate into the university setting,
Yes.
to already be able to start your college career with 6 credits.
Yes.
And a good GPA is just it really sets the tone for the whole school year, and allows you to enter first semester not feeling overwhelmed, because if you don't want to take 5 classes, you can pare back and take 4, which I still took 5, but you
Right.
could pare back and take 4, and you still have the credits in the bank to allow you to be where you are, to be in standing as a freshman. So just a phenomenal program. It's given tons of people that look like me an opportunity just to have a great life, to receive their education. I couldn't be more thankful to Louis DeMayo and the folks and the family at TD, just for believing in me and giving me the opportunity to do the things that I'm doing now in my career. It was such a blessing, and I could talk about this program all day, but it was such a blessing. I really can't put it into words. It doesn't do it justice.
Yeah. So let me give you, so this is funny. So here's another way that we're connected. So way back in the day, when I applied to college, TD, talent development, was actually a program that encompassed the University of Rhode Island, Rhode Island College, and Providence College. So they were all kind of connected. And then, over time, they split into their separate programs. But I was one of those students I was accepted into the summer program. But at that time, they allowed you, I was allowed to, I didn't have to attend the summer program, because during that time, they said, because my grades were okay and testing and what have you. And I knew I was going to go to Rhode Island College because I wanted to be a teacher, and Rick is the teacher's college. But it's funny because So I didn't do the summer program, but I was down there hanging out with people because all my friends were in TD. And TD is such a part. I mean, my youngest son Dwayne went to TD. A couple of my best friends went to talent development. So I understand that. And Mr. DeMeo was like, oh my God, he was like a rock star. And I don't think as young students, we realized how much Leo DeMeo was doing for the students. I mean, his legacy is one that will live on forever and ever and ever. He just did so much for students. And like
Absolutely.
you said, students that looked like us.
Absolutely. And I mean, I didn't understand the benefits of talent development until, I left the university, and now you're out on your own and you're in the workforce and you don't have these weekly meetings anymore. And, you're responsible for yourself. You don't have to answer to anybody. And if I didn't have that structure, at TD, forcing me to be accountable,
Right.
what people don't realize is the habits that you develop as a student in high school, the habits you develop as a student in college, are the same habits that you carry over into the workforce.
Right.
So if you like to cheat yourself, if you like to cheat off your friends, when you get into the workforce, you're going to be looking for the easy way out, and that makes for a long career. College is only 4 years of your life. Your career is the next 30 to 35. So you can only fake it for a little bit. But what TD made me realize is that you can't fake it. You have to bring it every day and every week. And if you don't, you're not going to be here anymore. And that's the reality of the situation. I didn't understand that premise, I don't think, until I graduated college, and I didn't have that structure anymore. And I was solely, you. So, I mean, I like I said, that program is just amazing. It built me and made me who I am. And, anyone who is applying to the University of Rhode Island, whether you think you'll get into the program or not, I encourage you to apply. Just the community you're going to build. You're going to have friends for a lifetime, and you never know what relationships are going to transpire to help bring you to where you need to be.
Yeah, that is so true. Oh my God. Like you said, there's not enough great things that you can say about TD. So for those that are out there listening, we're talking about talent development at the University of Rhode Island. Is what we call what's now known as a bridge program. And it's to help acclimate students who otherwise, a lot of times, are first generation college students, help them acclimate to the college atmosphere, in addition to taking some credits so that they can start their freshman year already with some credits behind them. But it is a really good program. And I would definitely recommend that as you're looking at colleges, if you're a first generation college student and that's an environment that you might need a little bit of help in the beginning, find a school with the bridge program. As I said, the talent development program at the University of Rhode Island is fantastic. Brian, so you graduate from URI with political science. So tell me about your first job. Like, what did you first do with a degree in political science?
Luckily for me, I graduated college back in 2006. So at that time in 2006, if folks remember, the country was, well, I mean, it's funny to say the country is divided because it's probably more divided now than it is ever. But back in 2006, I mean, we were on the heels of Hurricane Katrina, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the financial crisis. So there was really a push for a change in leadership. So Sheldon Whitehouse, now U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, was running for U.S. Senate against Lincoln Chafee. And if anyone knows anything about the Chafees in Rhode Island, they're political staples here. John Chafee was Secretary of the Navy. He was a U.S. Senator who died in his seat. His son, Lincoln Chafee, then took over, who's a former mayor of Warwick and who subsequently went on after his defeat to be governor of Rhode Island. But I had an opportunity to go work on Sheldon Whitehouse's campaign. So I was hired by the National Democratic Committee, the DCCC, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, to work on Sheldon Whitehouse's race. They had invested a ton of money to help flip the Senate. And, we were running in a good time for Democrats. Bush was deeply unpopular because of some of the things I previously stated. We ran a good campaign that was field heavy. So I was a field worker. I organized on the south side of Providence and on the west end. Didn't have too much knowledge of Providence. I mean, obviously I grew up in East Providence, but hadn't spent an abundance of time in Providence for a myriad of reasons. Anyone that grew up in Rhode Island knows, when we were growing up, you could roll a bowling ball down the middle of Providence and not hit a soul after 5 p.m. And that started to change when the X Games came in and they built the mall and the West End, and we started getting some development. So working in Providence in 2006 was great. Got a chance to really get to know the neighborhoods, the people in the community, the power players, the politicians. And we ended up beating Lincoln Chafee by 7%, which was amazing given that, he left office, I believe, with a plus 70 approval rating. So it was a great campaign, and that really opened up my career. After working on White House's races, I had an opportunity to go work for Barack Obama's first campaign in Iowa and Des Moines for the Iowa caucuses. I had an opportunity to go work for Sheldon Whitehouse in his DC office. I had an opportunity to go work for the Lieutenant Governor Elizabeth Roberts, who I ultimately chose to go work for because at the time, it was stability. It offered me stability, benefits. Still to this day, I've been working in my career now 15 years, and that White House campaign was probably the hardest I've ever worked on any job, day in, day out, 7 days a week. Knocking on doors, canvassing phone calls, organizing events, just really putting your feet to the pavement and getting to know the people and the results from our work. It was hard work, which is why I didn't want to go work on Obama's campaign, because it was such a mental slog to do it 7 days a week that after the campaign, I probably slept till 12 o'clock for about 2 weeks straight, which for me, anyone that knows me, I get out of bed at 5 o'clock. But that really opened up my career. From there, I was able to work for the Lieutenant Governor, spent some time in her office. Then I went to work for Congressman Cicilline, spent some time in his office. Then I ran, I was deputy field director for Angel Taveras, who was the first minority mayor of Providence, a Dominican gentleman who grew up in the city, went to classical, from Head Start to Harvard. Was a great example of what kids in the community could be. Worked on his campaign, and from there, I was given the opportunity to work for Congressman Cicilline as a policy. Forget my title name now. Policy aide. But was able to then transition into the private sector and went to work for Liberty Mutual, managing their PAC. In all their political compliance for a Fortune 100 company, and it's funny, all these experiences that you have in your career when you're not making a lot of money and you're complaining and you're thinking this job isn't great. Right. I came to realize in my career that everything's a building block, and that really hit me when I went to interview for my role at Liberty Mutual. My boss is looking at my resume and puts it down and says to me, "You work for Congressman Cicilline. I was just at a luncheon with him the other day, and we were having a discussion on policy. What my group did at Liberty and what I do now is I lobby. I'm a lobbyist. So we have a lot of FaceTimes with politicians. So it was just life is kind of serendipitous and how things work out, and you just need to trust the plan, and each step brings you to your next one." And all those experiences led me to where I am now. It's been a great ride, and I couldn't have asked for anything more. The ups and the downs led me to be exactly where I should be.
Okay. So for folks who are listening in, with Brian Monteiro, who is here as one who majored in political science. And if you've been listening in, you just heard about, his career to Islander, don't live there now, but I'm a Rhode Islander through and through. The political names that he mentioned, when you're talking about the Chafees, the Chafees were like, they were like royalty in Rhode Island, especially, when Governor John Chafee and Mayor Cicilline in Providence and, all of these people. So you had the opportunity to work on some pretty some pretty powerful campaigns. And one of the things I love that you said toward the end when you were talking about how as you moved on into the private sector, you realized that all those experiences that you had accrued during your work on different campaigns and different staffs, that they all led you to where you are today. So everything is intertwined, and politics, is about networking. You already had that strong network in Rhode Island, it always helps a lot. It really helps a lot in Rhode Island. We're a small state, and it's really hard to not go somewhere and meet somebody from Rhode Island or have some connections. When they talk about 6 degrees of separation in Rhode Island, it's like 1.5 degrees of separation.
Absolutely.
It really is. So tell me a little bit so now you're in the private sector. So what does that look like?
So I'm in the private sector, but I now work for the Mass Dental Society, which so basically we represent 5,000 dentists across Massachusetts. So as opposed to me lobbying on behalf of business units in a company, now I lobby on behalf of individual dentists and dental policy, anything related to healthcare. So it's been a learning curve, but lobbying is lobbying. I guess the difference between the private sector and a nonprofit entity is really just the culture. The culture at nonprofits, I think, tend to be a little bit more laid back and not as stuffy, which is what I prefer. But most of all, I mean, it's a smaller organization. I'm just, they gave me the opportunity to run their government relations shop. I get to run their their government affairs shop in their public relations shop. I get to manage. So for me, it was just an opportunity for me to grow in my career, for me to assume a bit more responsibility than I had been previously given. So it was a no-brainer for myself. I love what we lobby on. Oral health is closely related to overall health. So the bills and the regulatory issues that I face on a daily and weekly basis, I don't know. I wake up today and there could be a bill that dropped, and I'm getting an email asking me what this bill means, and I don't know. I have to sit there and do a red line and go through it and figure out kind of what the impacts of the organization is. So the difference is it's a smaller shop and there's more responsibility, which prepares me for my inevitable next move in the future, whenever that may be. But everything is about growth. In every role that you take, you should look to challenge yourself. There are plenty of days that I'm in my job and something comes across my desk and I might not understand it, but I've built a network enough, built relationships enough that I can reach out to people that are always more than willing to give me whatever assistance I need in my career. And I think that's the biggest thing that people need to understand is as you grow through your career, you're gonna face challenges, but you have people that are on your side. You have different mentors that you meet throughout your career, and they're more than happy to have you reach out to them to help you further your career. So one thing I can say is just never burn a bridge, because literally you never know when you're gonna have to walk back over that again for whatever reason. I can't tell you how many times I crossed people, not that we burn bridges, but people that were just in vastly different roles that I never thought that we would cross paths. And, now they're emailing me because they took a new role and we have to go and negotiate policy. So it's just, you never know, but that's the difference. There is no real difference. Every place is relationships, and you got to know how to make them. And you just got to understand how to navigate that environment that you're in.
Brian, you just said a mouthful there. I'm always talking to my students about the importance of developing relationships. And as high school students, they're still trying to figure out what that means and what that looks like. But also when I'm talking to them about their future career interests, we talk about the importance of, well, how do you network and what does that look like? Like, I remember when I first started my business, like for me, networking was a dirty word. I'm like, oh man, you got to go to these networking things, pass out your business card, blah, 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 have that, small talk and what have you. But as I leaned back into my school counselor training, it went back to building relationships. It's not about making the sale or doing this or what have you. It's really getting to know people. And what you said about being able to, because you never know who's going to cross your path from 10 years down the line. You know, people's roles change all the time. And, you know, I've experienced that where people that I worked with at East Providence High School, and now, you know, we're talking to each other in a different role. I was telling somebody when I started this business how my logo was designed by a student at East Providence High School, because I knew she went to school to be a graphic artist, and this is what she was doing. So you reach back to students to do that. My first website was designed by Seneca Yearwood. You know, he did my first.
Seneca's one of my best and oldest friends, and my other friend Sarah I grew up with. She does logo designs, and anytime I need logo designs, she does them all. So it's all about calling on your network.
It is. So you know, Sarah did my logo. So it's so cool.
Yeah, she's great.
So I tell people, you know, how you move back. So we have with us this evening Tracy Sherrod. Tracy, thank you so much for joining us. And she said, Brian, that was some good advice that you just shared with everyone. Tracy is the Director of Library Services at Methodist University here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And she's a previous guest. So Tracy, I appreciate you being here with us. And again, make sure you share this out with people, because, you know, Brian's given some great advice here that young folks need to hear, families need to hear, because again, it's all about building relationships. So Tracy, thank you so much for coming in, and, you know, stay for the rest of the show.
And one thing I want to highlight something that you said, especially in my business, people like to build relationships with people that they like. People like genuine people, and when you're building a relationship and when you're networking, you have to remember that you can't go into, you know, a networking scenario or networking situation and look for a transactional relationship. You have to attempt to build a genuine relationship, and that's literally the foundation of everything. If people feel they're genuine, if people feel you're genuine, they'll do almost anything for you if you're genuine and you're reliable. So those are the two main things that I can say is, you know, just be a genuine person, be a person of your word. When you say you're going to do something, you know, for somebody in the workplace, do it. That goes a long way. And like I said, just be genuine. I worked in my last role, you know, so pretty much every job I walk into, I'm one of the few minorities that does what I do. And that's just a function that there aren't that many Black lobbyists. But one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of my colleagues that were white would come to me and say, hey, I have how do you go into communities of color and build relationships? And, you know, one of the things I would always tell them is you don't have to go into a community of color. And this is not only for communities of color, this goes for any community. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go into communities with an agenda.
Right.
If you go into a community and you're a genuine person, people will pick that up. It doesn't matter what color you are. They look at your spirit and the things that you do, in your actions. And if your actions reflect what you say, then they will accept you into their community. And it's just about, you know, what divides us is not greater than what connects us. And I just wish people understood that. It costs you nothing, you know, to meet someone and send them an email, or to send them a text, how you doing? Those are how you build relationships, through genuine asks. No one wants to be contacted when you see that I just got a new job and now you're trying to get into the MDS, or you're trying to get into, you know, Liberty Mutual or any career, or any company. You know, but if you had been contacting me from when I first met you, mm-hmm. and, you know, I knew who you were and I knew that this isn't a transactional relationship, then absolutely I will do whatever I can, including drafting. You know, I draft enough stuff. I'll take my time and draft up a letter for you to you know, to sing your praises. But I have to feel good about who you are. And that's the first thing about lobbying. And that's why when you meet lobbyists, I mean, I'm the type of person I'll talk at the opening of an envelope. I mean, if you'll have me, I'll go there and talk. I love to meet people. I love to meet people. I love to talk to people, and I like to hear their experiences. Their experiences enrich me, and it makes me a better lobbyist, a better person. So we can all learn from each other, and I mean that's my main message. Is just talk to folks and have your relationships be genuine.
Yeah. I love what you said about it's not transactional, because I think so many people um, sometimes go through life thinking it's a transaction, thinking that when you're around somebody that it's like, what can this person do for me? I know, like in my business, there are people that I have as I have their children as students now in my private business that I met years ago. I didn't even realize they, had kids. Now their kids are college age. But what you said was so true about being genuine, showing up, being yourself, moving with integrity in whatever you do. And when people know, like, and trust you, they will definitely do what they can to help you. So I just love that you said that, because we are. And what you said about, there's more that brings us together than divides us. And if we could just get that message through, if we understood that would be just so, that would be wonderful. That would really help us get rid of a lot of the divisiveness that we're experiencing now and have experienced for a number of years. But like what you said about when someone asked you about going into community of color, it's no different. It's no different. People just want to know, like you said, it reminds me so much of teaching when you talked about Mr. Martin and first Black teacher that you had as a senior in high school, and you talked about having control over the classroom. Here's what I remember about Richard Martin. So Richard Martin was a history teacher at East Providence High School. He and I both were history teachers, so we were in the same department for a number of years. What I remember about him, I used to sit outside his room during I used to have corridor duty. We had to, make sure kids were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And I used to sit outside his room. He would walk in that room and he always said, "Good day, ladies and gentlemen." And he expected a response. I don't care what the kids were doing in that room. I don't care what was going on. He commanded respect. And because he commanded the respect and those were his high expectations of each student, they gave it back to him. I remember talking to a student one time who had been, you remember 119, kids get kicked out of class.
Yeah.
119. And I remember that there was a young man that was in one of his history classes that otherwise lived in 119. And I pulled him aside one time and I said, "So how is it that you can behave in this classroom and you don't in others?" And he said, "I don't want to let Mr. Martin down." He goes,
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was I'll tell you what, Mr. Martin was a great teacher. He came into the classroom. We had a bunch of clowns in that class. It was late in the day. We were all seniors, and I mean, we just had a bunch of jokesters. I don't know if you remember this Ross Walker, who's now in the Air Force. But we had Ross, Seneca, myself, Ross's brother Roland, Sarah, Harita, just a whole bunch of jokesters. So we'd walk in there, and literally for about the first 5 to 10 minutes of class, it was just everybody roasting each other, just making jokes and cracking on each other. Mr. Martin would laugh, and finally he'd say, after about 5 minutes, he'd say, "All right, boom, time to get down to business," and that was it.
Yeah.
When he would say, "Okay, the party's over," that's it. The party was over. No one would then try to push it. When Mr. Martin said it was time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah.
One of the best teachers I ever had, and I was happy to see him win. I might misquote this, but he won maybe teacher or district teacher of the year award.
Yes.
It was well deserved, and if you ask me, he should have won that 10 years before he actually did. Just a phenomenal teacher, and I had 4 Black professors, 4 Black teachers in my life: Mr. Martin, Professor Okiki, Dr. Ferguson, and Dr. Lafayette, who marched with Martin Luther King.
Okay.
So in through Dr. Lafayette, I know one of my friends who also graduated East Providence High School, Bobby Brito Oliveira, is now the assistant director of the Multicultural Student Services Center at URI. So there's just the impacts of having Black leadership in the classroom goes a long way, because for folks that look like us, that's rare, and that's something that you don't see unless you live probably in the inner city, and then even so, not even at that.
Right.
So it was something that was rare in East Providence, and I'm always grateful that I was able to have him as a teacher. He literally he transformed my thought process and what I wanted to study in college, and that's what you look for in educators, is someone to inspire you, someone to make you think, uh, to think that you can be more and do more, and he checked all those boxes. So I haven't talked to him in probably 20 plus years, but I hope he's well. And if he sees this, thank you for being the educator and the leader that you were. I mean, you inspired a lot of kids that never got the chance to tell you that. So hats off to you, and you've had a great career, and I wish you many more years of health and prosperity, and more so just a good life.
Well, I will make sure that Richard sees this because we're Facebook friends. So
Okay.
we stay in contact all the time. And it, he would be, and hearing you say that, that is who he is to his core. And he also inspired teachers. I used to tell him, I said, I would sit outside your classroom and listen to you talk with your students, the way you conducted class. And you made me want to be a better teacher. You made me want to connect more so with students. Um, I said, I always love how, even with the students that were a little rough around the edges and might give some folks, he he always treated them with dignity and respect. I'll never forget. So one kid I remember one time was came to 119, and I happened to be on duty that time. And I said, "Where are you coming from?" He goes, "Oh, I was supposed to be in Mr. Martin's class, but I'm late." And I'm like, "All right." I said, "Did you go to class first?" He goes, "No, I just came down here because I was late." About 6 minutes later, Richard Martin came in and he asked the young man, he said, "Why are you here?" He goes, "Well, I was going to be late to your class." Did I send you to 119? He said, "Well, no." He goes, "Unless I send you to 119, you're to come to
You
class."
don't.
He goes, we
That
will,
doesn't happen.
yeah, he goes, "We will deal with what, you being late." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And I was just sitting there saying, "Oh my God, if more teachers had that respect," because the respect went both ways. The respect went both ways in his class, and he is a forever role model as a teacher. Dapper Dan, always dressed, always just so authentic, and it wasn't a put on. Wasn't a put on.
And and
That's
one
a,
thing I just want to highlight something that you said. Respect goes both ways. Um, and that's not something that you're going to learn in middle school, high school, college, the workforce. If you go to work if you go to work anywhere, for the most part, if you respect people, they will respect you back. Not that you won't have your outliers,
mm,
but one of the things I think it's important is for folks to understand, especially being a minority in the workplace, is you can be respectful, but you can always speak your truth. Um, right is right and wrong is wrong. If you don't like the way someone addresses you, it's quite all right to tell them that you don't like the way that they address you, but in a nice, formal way. Um, it's important, I think, uh, for minorities to be empowered in the workplace and to feel like, this is a place and a space for you. And you have to be able to speak your truth, whether it's with your work or things that are going on in the office. You always have to be able to speak your truth and speak it honestly and openly. Um, and I think that goes a long way just in workplace
mm,
serenity. That's a lot of times people get to the workplace and they have issues with their colleagues, and they lose perspective. One thing I want people to understand is that you can't always match the energy that your colleagues may give you, or
mm,
people, or just anyone in the workplace may give you, because you don't understand what it is that they're going through. So their visceral reaction to anything that's going on in the office could be something that's a reaction to something that's going on in their life.
right.
So as a minority, this is something that my father always used to say. You already have two strikes on you. One, you're black. Two, you're poor. So
Mm,
everything we do in the workplace has to be, A1, a cut above the rest, because we're just judged at a different standard and at a different level than anyone and everyone else is. So when you go in, speak your truth, do your work good, and just be respectful. Respect yourself, respect the work that you do, and just, just res- respect yourself. If you respect yourself, that goes a long way, and people understand this isn't somebody to mess with. Um, but your career is probably the most important thing to you, whether you enjoy what you do or not. It pays the bills. Whether you like getting up every day, your bills are still going to come.
Yeah.
And I tell folks, it's what you do with time. Time's going to come and go, whether you enjoy your job or not. But are you taking the lessons that you need from your current role to get you to the next place? Which brings me to something that I said earlier. Sometimes you experience things in the workplace and you do jobs that you don't necessarily like, but you have to understand what the bigger picture is, and you have to understand what the end game is. I mean, you never know who you're going to meet, what project you're going to work on, whose path you're going to cross that's going to say, hey, I like this guy or girl. I think that they have potential. I think that they can be more and do more. So every day that you go to work, it's not only important that you respect your colleagues, but you just respect yourself. And that only goes, just not only in how you treat your colleagues, but just how you treat your work, and just the attitude that you attack every day in the office with. You got to bring it every day.
Yeah. I love that, Brian. I love that so much, because for the longest time, teaching at East Providence High School, it was me and Mr. Martin in the classroom. Then we had Mr. Monteiro, Jay Monteiro, who was phys ed, Louis Cavallo, who was phys ed, but you could count us on one hand. You could count us
I take
on.
that. So actually, I'd be remiss of, Mr. Monteiro. That's my last name. So I did have Mr. Monteiro as a gym teacher in middle school and high school, and Mr. Cavallo, obviously, I played volleyball at East Providence High School. Mr. Cavallo was the head coach there. We won a couple of state championships together. He's and I tell folks this, not to digress, but one of the most fair and honest people that I ever met. He, as a coach, he never put anybody, probably one of the only coaches I had, didn't care if you were a superstar or if you were the 14th man on the bench. If you didn't respect the team, if you didn't respect me or how I do things, I don't care. You're going to sit on the bench.
Right.
He was just lessons that, I mean, that's another one. I haven't seen Mr. Cavallo. I would run into him years, but I know he's moved since then. But just another outstanding educator, and just a teacher of lessons in life. East Providence was full of them, man. We didn't have many, but the ones that we did have were absolute. I mean, they're legends. I don't say that just as hyperbole. I mean, if you go to anyone who's my generation, slightly after, and you name these people, they're gonna know exactly who I'm talking about.
Exactly. That is so true. It's funny because I think back to when I was a high school counselor there. I mean, I was the only Black counselor. So here it is. So I retired from East Providence in 2008, I want to say. Yeah, 2008. There still has not been another Black counselor in that school counseling department. It was like one and done. And I remember being a counselor and having students who weren't on my caseload, because, we were assigned students by homeroom, having students who weren't on my caseload, but were Black or brown students who would come in to talk to me because they felt more comfortable sometimes talking to somebody that looked like them. So I found that I had extra students, but it was okay because I understood how important it was that they see somebody not just in that role, but impeccable in that role. So it was always important to me that I treated all of my students the way I wanted people to treat my sons. So, so it went that way.
And that's true. I mean, what I can say is my experience in, education in East Providence. I mean, I have teachers in elementary school. I had a teacher, Colleen Holland, who really invested, in me. Back then I was, I used to get into a lot of stuff in the classroom, wouldn't pay attention. It was just, kind of aimless as a student back then. It was really a handful. And she really went out of her way to make sure that I was doing what I was supposed to do. And then when I got to Martin, they initially had put me in the lowest level classes, and as I'm there and I'm just doing the work, not being challenged, one of my teachers said, you need to be doing more, and they moved me up, which then brought me in contact with Miss Wallace. She's now, but I know that she was at least had made her way up to an assistant principal, but she used to come to my house after school and would tutor me for an hour on math. And when I got to East Providence High School, based off of the guidance I had, from middle school and elementary school, my guidance counselor at East Providence, not to, I'm not going to say any names or knock anything, but my guidance counselor was not very helpful, and that, that's just being frank, was not very helpful to get me to where I needed to be. And a lot of that is that, they don't necessarily, I think, understood you and understood, the things that kids like us went through.
Right.
So having someone that looks like you to help guide you through certain processes, especially during those transformative years, are huge. And these aren't things that you think about until, the passage of time, and you're able to put your life into context and your experiences into context after you've lived. Now being 37, I've lived just as many years as I did that I was in high school.
Yeah.
So I can look back and I just have a different, a different view on things now. But all in all, I can say, the East Providence High School, the East Providence school system, period, definitely, equipped me with the tools that I needed to be successful in my career. So I was very grateful that, I attended that school system, had teachers that cared about me, had folks that were invested in my success.
Yeah.
And looking back now, I mean, those are the things that I just, I'm very appreciative of, as I age and look back at the story.
Yeah. Oh, they will be so glad to hear this. My goal next time I go home is to visit the new building.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I drove past it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was home in June. I was home the end of June, and you couldn't go in then because they were still doing construction. But I said, as soon as I go back, I want to walk the halls and see where I could have been teaching to see what it looks like. And I hear it's like
it's amazing,
wonderful. Yeah,
I haven't been through it. I drove past it. Yeah, I drove past it. It's just it's a different vibe. Kind of changed the landscape. I mean, we're all used to the sprawling, 2-level school, but they did an outstanding job, and I'm just happy for those kids that, not only do they get to experience top-notch facilities, but just a good learning environment. It really sets the stage when they walk in there, and if they feel good about the building they're in, then, they're going to feel good about their day and their education. So I'm expecting, for the kids of East Providence, I mean, you guys are living life, so I'm expecting, multiple Division I athletes, a bunch of Ivy League kids.
Yes.
They have best facilities in the state of Rhode Island right now.
They do.
So just hats off to the school committee and for the residents of East Providence for just passing that bond to ensure kids like my nephews are going to have top-notch facilities as they get educated.
So true. So true. So Brian, one of the things I always ask guests are, what books would you recommend for people to read? And you recommended two, and I've only read one of the two, so I'm a little behind. So you recommended The Underground Railroad and The Nickel Boys, and they're both by Colson Whitehead. So talk to us about these books.
So The Underground Railroad is just it's a great depiction of, obviously it's fiction, but it's a great depiction of just what folks who were enslaved had to go through as they were trying to get their freedom. I don't want to give too much away, but The Nickel Boys is about a reform school down in Florida, and honestly, I like that probably more than The Underground Railroad.
Okay.
And they both won Pulitzers. So if people don't understand the significance of Colson Whitehead, I mean, to have an African American author to win 2 Pulitzers, I think he won 2 out of 3 years, or 3 out of 4, or 2 out of 4. So they're just fantastic books. A couple of other things I'll suggest is The Spook by the Door was a good one that I read. I'm in a book club, which they probably
oh, okay.
They're probably gonna laugh at me because I haven't read the past few books. But we've read stuff. We've read War and Peace. which was great. We read another one that I read, which is it's racist, but you got to think of the times that it was written. Was Gone with the Wind was a phenomenal book. It's obviously written for the times, but the story is much better than the movie. So if anyone liked the movie, I say give it a chance. I joined this book club. It's a classics book club just to kind of expand my horizons and read things that I wouldn't normally read, like Gone with the Wind or War and Peace. Yeah, we have a family book club, and that's kind of one of the things we do. We meet every 2 to 3 months or so, depending on the length of the book, and read stuff. So yeah, we all get to pick our choice. So reading something that is huge in my family. My uncle's a big reader. My brother, sister, cousins, nephews, everyone. So books are huge. So if anyone ever wants a book recommendation, just let me know.
Okay, I love that. I love that. I am, not just because I'm a teacher, but I always tell people like my earliest memory is getting my library card. I am a fanatic about libraries. I believe that libraries are like the great equalizer because it's a place where you can go in and you can learn whatever you choose to learn. I mean, it's limitless, and all you need is a library card. So much so that, one of the first things I did when I moved here to North Carolina was to get a library card. And I'm really proud to say that I am finishing out my second term as the chair of the Board of Trustees for the Cumberland County Public Library System. So I am all about people reading and books and using your library. So I love that you belong to a book club focused on the classics.
We're gonna have to get you in there. Now that I know you're a trustee, I'm gonna have to send you an email and let you know about our the next book we're reading. I think it's The Color Purple, actually. So if you haven't read The Color Purple,
that is fantastic.
Please feel free to join. So that's what we're reading this month. So I'm looking forward to that read to get me back into it. Definitely, but reading is great. I mean, I tell folks anything you want to learn, if you can read or write, you can learn about anything. You just gotta spend the time. I love photography, and one of the things that I've picked up is, I'm self-taught. I've just spent hours researching and reading, and that just further highlighted the fact that anything that you want to do, you can just, take the time and do it. Life, you only get one life.
Right.
So I tell folks, indulge in the things that your passions, your hobbies. Your career is always your career, but it's a changing possession in the fortunes of time. It's something that I can say, meaning that, you have a career today, could be gone tomorrow. There's no loyalty in the workforce. So I always think it's important for folks to develop another skill, just something to help, break up the monotony of your work days, of your career. But, just, learn everything that you have the opportunity to. There's nothing that you can't learn. You just got to have the desire to do it. So books to me are just, they're anything you want to learn. I don't have to go pay for an education if I have the discipline to read a book. So read a book, it'll improve your vocabulary, and people think you're smarter than you really are. So, like myself. People think I'm smarter than I am because I read books. So,
I love that. I love that. I love that. I mean, you're preaching to the choir over here, because my friends laugh at me because I'm always buying books, and it's like I keep saying, okay, I'm just going to take them out from the library. I'm not going to buy any more books. But then, I love having a book. I sometimes I belong to Audible, so sometimes I'll listen to a book, like that. But the idea of having a book in your hand, and I don't know, one of these people, you go in a bookstore, and that's my happy place, to be in a bookstore, to go in, one of the books I wanted to talk to people about. So I listened to this, one of my favorite radio hosts is Karen Hunter, and she's on Sirius XM Urban View Radio. And she always is talking about, generational wealth and building up the community and what have you. And a couple of weeks ago, she had a gentleman on who writes, but he writes for young kids, and he does like graphic novels. So I said, I got to go do this, because what I'm finding for me is I'm starting to go back and read like some children's books and looking at the lessons in the stories, because sometimes I find my high school kids are so busy with everything they have to do, and I'm always encouraging them to read. And I said, it doesn't have to be a heavy book. There are so many great children's books and books for middle school students that you should read. So, this is one that he has. It's called The New Kid. And he's talking about, a young Black kid in 7th grade. But what's so cool about it is it's a graphic novel. So it's like, but it's pretty. I mean, it's like how many pages? It's over 200 pages. So, but they're good. So I find myself like reading those and then, picking those up for students. So I think I love what you just said about, you can be whatever you want to be. You can learn whatever you want to learn, because there are books about everything. And if you have a library card, the world's open to you. The world is open to you.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned a graphic novel, I don't know if you've, one of the books we read was The Watchmen. So I don't know if you've had a chance to read The Watchmen, but if you haven't, I suggest that you pick it up, because a lot of the parallels that they speak about in The Watchmen in terms of government were very pertinent to what was going on, in the previous administration and kind of where we are today. So if you haven't read The Watchmen yet, it's a fantastic read. So I urge you to pick that up and read that. Definitely.
All right. Another one for my list now. My reading list. I have this saying that I'll die before I read all the books. I mean, it's crazy. Like my husband's always like, please don't bring another book in this house. And I'm like, it's like I'm addicted. It's like, how do you not pick up a book? It's so hard not to do that. So what advice would you give to a young person as far as if they wanted to do the type of work that you're doing? What advice would you give them, especially as you said, in a environment where you may be a minority of one? That's just the way it is.
So what I can say is there's no direct career path to becoming a lobbyist. What I will say is be passionate and be involved. If you enjoy government and you enjoy advocacy, that is the more important thing. Being a lobbyist is just advocating for different bills, different policies, different regulations. I know lobbyists that went to school, to be a business major. Then you have people like myself who thought they were going to be a lawyer and kind of fell into this. But the biggest thing that I can say is just be an advocate, and it's a natural progression. If you're working in and around government, politics, and you stop building and fostering, the necessary relationships, you're going to get to know a lot of people. And mainly what people pay for is relationships. That's what they're paying for. I mean, even if I lobby on dental policy, I'm still not, I guess I'm perceived to be a dental expert, right? But every time that I go lobby, it's like having a stump speech. I have certain points that I hit, certain points that I want to get across, and I want to let you know, why my opposition's points are null and void. But it's about building relationships with people like you. I can't tell you how many times I go into a room to meet with a lawmaker, and our meeting's a half an hour. We're talking 20 minutes about the basketball game last night and hoops, and then they say, we talk 5-6 minutes about the bill that I'm there for, and just because they like me, they're like, hey, that I think that's something that I can support. People like genuine people, and if you want to be an advocate, it's just about knowing the things that you're advocating for. Every time that you educate a lawmaker, 99.9% of the time, you're telling them something that they don't know. So you're always in the driver's seat. They might ask you questions, but whatever they're going to ask you is fairly basic. So it's just about being around advocacy, breaking in. You're going to have to do the low wage jobs for a little bit. But if you want to be a lobbyist, talk to anyone in a government relations office and they will direct you to someone like myself. what we do, lobbyists, what we do is we're the creators of policy. We're the ones who draft the policy, and bills are then filed by the lawmakers. So every bill that's filed, they have a lobbyist behind them that drafted this bill and told them what needs to be in this bill and what doesn't need to be in this bill. So, you know, every staffer has a relationship with lobbyists.
Okay.
But the biggest thing I can say is get involved in campaigns. You know, go intern. If you're a student, go intern at your local senator's office or the state house. Get in, get your name out there, work on campaigns. It's going to be, you know, crappy pay, but you know, sometimes you can't quantify experience. Same way I can't quantify wasted time. You know, once it's gone, it's gone. I can't put a price tag on this experience because it's invaluable.
Right.
But you know, just get involved and be around. And if that's what you want to do, you know, closed mouths don't get fed. You have to tell people. You have to let them know what you want to do. And other lobbyists like myself, if I hear someone say, "Hey, I want to be a lobbyist," I'm like, "Oh, that's fantastic! Like, I'll tell you exactly what you need to do, so you don't have to go through the hoops that I went through to get
Right.
there."
Right.
So I'm always willing to pay it forward. So if anyone out there is listening and they want to know about my career path, the journey, or people that they should be connected to, at least in Rhode Island or Massachusetts, I can help you out. But it's just about be passionate about what you do and do it well. No one's going to want you to lobby on anything if you do everything halfway.
Right.
You know, so that's what I can tell you. No one wants a halfway advocate. You don't want a lawyer in court, you know, fighting your case, and he didn't even read the facts of the case before he walked in there. You don't want that. And it's the same way with lobbying. You got to be invested. You got to want to do it. But there's tons of opportunities out there, folks.
Thank you so much for that. For people who do want to get in touch with Brian or connect with Brian, his LinkedIn profile information is there on the screen. And I'll also include that in the show notes so that you can have it. Brian, this conversation was amazing. It's funny because, you know, I'm always looking to see what are our kids from East Providence doing. You know, you're still all my kids to me. So it's so nice to hear a student that graduated from East Providence High School that took all that the high school had to offer, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and ran with it, you know, and then went to URI and the talent development program. And again, used everything that they gave you, used it to your advantage. So I love the advice you just gave students about, you know, being an advocate and bring your A game, all the time. Don't come in half stepping, because people don't want somebody that comes in half stepping. They want to know that you're coming in and you're doing the job. And the part about the pay may be crappy, guys, you're not going to start at the top. You know, that's not the way it is. You are not going to start at the top. So just understand that and know that by building those relationships over time, it's going to put you in the place where you want to be. But you've got to put in the work. You got to put in the time. You've got
Absolutely. You got to put in the time. Nothing is given. You know, you're claiming your education because you know it's yours.
Right.
You need to take that same energy into the workforce. It's not hard. You're gonna have your days where you question yourself. You're gonna have days where you question your career. I mean, there are hard days in everything.
Right.
But I think it's important just not to lose sight of, you know, what you're doing and why you're doing it. You know, like I said, your career is the most important thing that you have going for you. And if you want, you can achieve and have anything that you want if you work hard enough for it. I mean, that's the beauty of America. With all its sham and drudgery, it's still a beautiful place. You still have opportunities to do everything you want to do with all of the issues that it has. You know, I'm the son of first generation immigrants from Cape Verde who came here with nothing but the clothes on their back, but understood that if you go and get an education, you can have anything that you want. And I that's my main thing to people. And education comes in many forms, not just school books. It comes in how you attack your craft and how much time and dedication you want to put into it. It's not just formal. And that's what I want folks to understand. Your education is not just books. Your education is constant. It's ongoing. Whether you're in school or not, you just got to attack it. And for a lot of us, that's the way out. So,
Right.
you know, you just gotta keep focused on that. And I think folks will be okay.
Oh, Brian, thank you so much. This is a conversation that I hope uh, as young folks listen and as some of us older folks listen, that you take away some of the important lessons that Brian just shared with us. Um, and again, I just thank everyone that is tuning in live and people that will be watching this on the replay. Please make sure you share this out with people. It's also will be playing. You can always catch it on my Facebook page, but also on my YouTube channel. And here's the link to the YouTube channel so that if you would like to catch the replay there, you can catch it there. Because I know everybody's not on Facebook. So it's also on the YouTube channel. And this is, again, part of my series on Representation Matters, because I think it's so important that we understand that. So, Brian, again, I am going to thank you so much for joining me this evening, joining our guests that chimed in or that watched or that were back there taking notes, whatever they were doing. So again, thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I like what you're doing and keep it up. And if I can ever be of assistance to you as you continue on this journey, please just let me know, and I'm willing to lend whatever assistance you need.
I certainly will. I certainly will. And I'd like you to just stay on as I close out this evening. So folks that are here and folks that are watching on replay, please join me next week for another College and Career Conversations with Dr. B. And we will be talking with Edna Irizarry, who is a realtor here in the local area. And she will talk to you how she parlayed her degree in finance into a career as a real estate agent and real estate broker. So everyone take care. Thank you so much for joining in, and I will see you next Monday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care, everyone.